Howdy folks, welcome back to Boondockery. Today's video is going to be focused on a series of little books called The Ranger Digest. Now for those of you that have spent time in the military, you know the military has a manual for everything. And you also know that a lot of these manuals are as dull as dirt. And it's very difficult for you to get into that mindset initially anyway, before you can really start letting that reading retention do its job and for you to be able to retain the information that's contained therein. Now, if you were military, you went through some form of basic training and then through an advanced individualized training that tried to teach you exactly the way the manuals say to, which is the military way. Now, if you were like me, as soon as you got to your permanent duty station, the first thing that everyone tells you is all the stuff you learned in basic and AIT, just forget about it now because we're going to teach you the right way, the real way to do it. Well, when I was in the service, there wasn't a whole lot of manuals that actually really taught you the real way to do things. Now these military manuals came in a huge range of sizes, and depending on what the topic was and how complete they wanted that information to be shared, some of these manuals could be this thick all the way to the thickness of a pamphlet. Could be your standard 8.5 by 11 all the way down to a very small pocket-sized manual. Without exception, the most convenient size of manual was one that you could stick in your hip pocket and you would be able to take those with you just about anywhere. When I was a sergeant in the Army, I had a pamphlet bag, and there were a lot of those manuals that I would put in that pamphlet bag to be able to take in and out of that pamphlet bag to put in my pockets whenever the need were to be realized. Now, the one nice thing about having a pocket-sized manual is when you're standing around hurrying up and wait, well, you could turn that into a nice little learning session by something that we used to call a hip pocket class. You simply took the manual out, and if you knew this was there was a particular topic that you were going to be working on a particular training event, or something you may feel that your team, your platoon, your crew, what have you, might be a little bit lacking in and definitely in need of a refresher, you could have a little impromptu class right on the spot. Now here's an example of some of the pocket-sized manuals I had when I was in the Army, and which came in quite handy frequently. A lot of you may have over time picked up a couple pocket-sized manuals yourself, such as the rifle 5.56 millimeter M16A2 manual, or this was a very common one to find at gun shows, which is the Ranger handbook. And this particular handbook, being just the perfect size for your pocket, was the inspiration for the Ranger Digest. Now, being a military manual, this is the official military way of doing things. And as a lot of you realize, depending on what profession you're in, people do not communicate like the training manuals. And not only that, there are certain tricks, hacks, shortcuts, different types of modifications that in the real world we perform, depending on what that profession may be. The military is definitely no exception when it comes to that. So when it came time to look at the Ranger handbook, this is absolutely a fantastic military manual for military personnel. However, it's not the way real soldiers do things. Now, the Ranger Digest series of books, written by Ranger Rick F. Tuskern, is a breath of fresh air compared to a military manual. Let me just go ahead and read you the first couple sentences of his foreword. This book was designed to help the new and inexperienced soldier to live, survive, and adjust to military outdoor field life. But not only will new recruits find these tips, tricks, and ideas useful, but the experienced and old-timers will too. If you read this easy-to-follow instruction manual very carefully, you can put a lot of tips and tricks to good use. And I can assure you that you will find the next field training exercise, also known as an FTX, a bit more bearable, comfortable, and even enjoyable. Now, when I was in the Army, we modified all kinds of things. We were issued the standard issue shoulder holster for our 45s. Well, we very easily modified that from being across the chest strap to an over the shoulder behind your neck shoulder strap. A lot more comfortable, and you could put it on and take it off a lot more easily without having to search for the hook and snap that you need to put on through all of the other webbing that you had on. We also found a way to attach our gas mask bag to our actual web gear, as opposed to putting it on, having it dangle on our leg, and then putting our other gear on. First thing I learned when I was in the Army is that you don't wear your socks right side out. You turn them inside out to prevent blisters. That's when I first went into the Army, one of the first little tips or tricks that I learned. But every aspect of military life is like that, and that's not unlike civilian life. Now, I first discovered the Ranger Digest, and it was just the Ranger Digest. It didn't say Digest 1. It was just the Ranger Digest. It was probably in the mid to late 90s at a gun show. I picked it up and thumbed through it, and I thought, wow, this is pretty cool. I like this. I like this a lot. Now, bear in mind that almost all the equipment that they discuss in here was actually being issued at the time period that the book was published, and I didn't have any of that equipment. All of my equipment was much older than that. But still, there was a lot of tips and tricks that were in these books that I found very useful. Here's a side-by-side comparison between the Ranger Handbook and the Ranger Digest. And as you can see, fairly small print, very basic, very simple illustrations. And some of these illustrations aren't the best. And it does what it was designed to do, which is to give you the information required for Ranger training in one concise little book. The Ranger Digest is also in a very similar format. It has very small text. It has very basic illustrations taken from a large variety of sources, and presents all of the information in a similar manner as the Ranger Handbook, except all of these are not official military approved hacks, tips, and tricks, and all of which you would actually really use in a training environment or a combat environment, as opposed to sticking by the book. Now, even though most of the equipment that is discussed in the Ranger Digest, I was never issued, I was still able to use a lot of these tips and tricks on the equipment that I did have. So it came in very handy. Many, many years later, I was on a website looking at some surplus equipment, and I just happened to see that they had available an entire set of the Ranger Digests, and there were 9. And not only could you buy the entire set, you could buy individual copies as well. So I went ahead and purchased the entire set and wound up giving my original Ranger Digest to a friend. This is the set I received. All of these books are absolutely cram-packed with incredibly useful information. If you use a lot of military surplus equipment, these books will be absolutely invaluable. If you like to add a lot of things to your wild camping and bushcrafting that may not necessarily be traditional, these are incredible resources to be able to use in that manner. Not only was I able to purchase this entire set for a fairly reasonable price because they were on sale. I'm the master of the sales. I was also able to purchase the Warning and Operation Order Handbook. And for functional military personnel, this is an invaluable product. For me, it was a matter of nostalgia and reminded me a lot of the types of manuals that I had when I was in the service. And it's an absolutely fantastic complement to the Ranger Handbook. For all of you that are prior service that like to keep up on your skills, these are incredible resources. Those of you that like to add a little bit of outside information into your wild camping and bushcrafting bag of tricks, these will also come in incredibly handy. When I was going through my personal library of books when I did my survival book video, I happened to look at these and I think, wow, that would be very, very useful for a lot of my viewers, and I should probably do a video on these. So I, since then, had gotten online, was looking for these, the Ranger Handbook series. And I didn't find any of these. I did find a couple on eBay, but I couldn't find the complete set. However, I found something not just as good, but possibly even better. These are what I found. All of the original Ranger Digests have now been consolidated into 2 paperback standard size books. And not only have they put all of this information in these, but almost everything in these have now been updated, and more information has actually been added to these compendiums of the original Digest series. Now, unlike the original Ranger Handbook, the manner in which the Ranger Digest series of books are written is in real world language. As a matter of fact, it's so real world language, it might actually be offensive to some of you that aren't exactly familiar with the manner in which U.S. service members communicate. Let's just say it can be a bit colorful at times. Now, I personally love the format of the originals. I love the size, everything about them I love. They're broken down in their individual volumes, and I love this. However, I do recognize the convenience, especially for home use, of having a standard sized book. The text is larger, the illustrations are more clear, and it's, I guess, a little more user-friendly for at home. Like I said, you can still find these on eBay. There might be other sources you can find the originals in. However, being able to have 2 that encompasses all of these, again, updated information as well, these are incredibly handy. Now, I had planned on showing you the table of contents in these books. However, this is all that's in them. It simply states which Ranger Digest book is contained in each one of the compendiums. And if you were to get one of the original ones, they do not have a table of contents either. So just take my word for it. There are hundreds of fantastic tips and tricks and hacks for any type of military surplus equipment or military field operations that you can encompass into your wild camping and bushcrafting experience. If you are a very traditional wild camper or bushcrafter, these might not be your cup of tea, but if you've ever spent time in the military, I think you will absolutely love these. And if you were in the military and you also love to wild camp and bushcraft, these will come in very handy to enhance any of your field time. Well, folks, I absolutely love these books. And if this style of writing and this information piques your interest, I would highly recommend picking a set up for yourselves. If by any chance you're actually interested in purchasing a set, I'll post a link in the description box below. Well, folks, as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Folks, if you like what you see on my channel, or you'd like to see my channel grow, please remember to click like, subscribe, hit the notifications bell, and add a comment. All of those factors tell YouTube that you like what you're seeing and they need to share it with others. Thank you. If by any chance you're interested in I'll post an affiliate link in my description box below, and you can check those out online and see if those are something you want to. If by any chance you're interested in picking a set of these up for yourself, I'll post a link down in the description. Folks, if you'd like to help Folks, if you like what you're seeing and you'd like to help the channel grow, please click like, subscribe, click that notification. Folks, if you like what I do on my channel and you'd like to see the channel grow, don't forget